I gave a stranger my coat in the snow. He showed up to my door on New Year's Eve as my arranged husband. New Year's Eve. The city counts down to midnight. Liora Bennett counts her steps home. 14 blocks. No gloves. The wind cuts through her like it has a reason to. She finished her second shift an hour ago. Her phone has 2 missed calls from the hospital, her mother's number, and one from Julian, which she will answer when she stops shaking from the cold. She is 26 years old and she is tired in a way that sleep does not fix. She tells herself it's temporary. She has been telling herself that for 3 years. Then she sees him. He is on the ground against a building wall, a man in an overcoat that costs more than her monthly rent, one hand pressed to his side, snow settling on his shoulders like the city has already decided he is furniture. His eyes are open. Dark, still, and watching her with an expression she cannot read. Everyone else on that street has already decided not to see him. Liora stops. She kneels in the snow beside a stranger and does the only thing she knows how to do. She gives him what she has. She pulls her coat off her own back and wraps it around him without being asked. She presses her scarf against the wound beneath his jacket. She stays until she hears sirens wailing 2 blocks over, and then she stands, smooths her dress, and walks the rest of the way home in the cold. She does not look back. She does not get his name. She never expects to see him again. New Year's Eve. 1 year later. Liora pushes open her front door and stops. Her mother is sitting at the kitchen table, and her mother is not alone. There is a man across from her. Tall. Composed. A suit that fits him like a decision. He is not looking at Clara. He is looking at the door. He knew exactly when she would walk through it. And he is wearing her coat. Her coat. The one she gave to a stranger bleeding in the snow on the coldest night of last year. Repaired. Cleaned. Worn like it belongs to him now. He does not stand. He does not smile. He simply says her name, Liora, in a voice so quiet and certain it sounds like he has been saying it in private for a very long time. Then he tells her, without apology and without decoration, that their families have entered an arrangement. That she is to be his wife. That his name is Sebastian Moretti. The city outside is still celebrating. Fireworks shatter the sky in gold and white. Liora stands in her own doorway, coatless and completely still, and understands, with the particular clarity of someone whose instincts have never once failed her, that the night she stopped on that street did not cost her a coat. It cost her everything that came before this moment. And it gave her everything that comes after. Snow quiet on the surface. A thunderstorm underneath. And a woman who has no idea yet that the most dangerous thing she has ever done was be kind. Liora's alarm goes off at 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before it's supposed to, because the radiator in the bedroom wall has started knocking again and sleep became pointless somewhere around 5. She lies there for exactly 30 seconds, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that has been there since before she moved in, and then she gets up. This is what she does. She gets up. By 6:15 she is on the subway, standing, one hand on the overhead rail, the other holding coffee in a paper cup that is already going cold. The morning shift at the hotel laundry starts at 7. The evening shift at the diner starts at 4. In between, if the timing works, she will stop at the pharmacy for her mother's prescription and eat something that is not from a vending machine. If the timing does not work, 2 out of 3 is still passing. Her phone buzzes somewhere around DeKalb Avenue. Liora Bennett, the screen says. Liora answers before the second buzz. The call is short. Her mother's voice is careful in the way it gets when she is trying not to frighten anyone, bright at the edges, hollow in the middle. The doctor wants to move the next appointment up. Nothing urgent, Clara says, which is what she always says when it is at least a little urgent. Liora says she will handle it. She will call the office when she gets a break. She says I love you and hangs up and looks at the dark window of the subway car and watches her own reflection not react. She is very good at not reacting. At 11:43, between shifts, her phone lights up with a message from Julian. Thinking about you. Dinner this week? 3 words and a question, and something in her chest unclenches in a way she is not entirely proud of. She reads it twice. She types back yes and puts her phone away and allows herself, for the length of 1 city block, to feel looked after. It is a small thing. She has learned to make small things last. The evening shift runs long, a table of 12 at 8:30, a kitchen backup, a manager who apologizes with the practiced efficiency of someone who does not mean it. By the time Liora steps outside it is nearly 11 and the city has remembered it is New Year's Eve. Music from somewhere. Laughter from everywhere. The snow that was threatening all week has finally followed through, falling in the heavy, committed way that muffles the city into something almost peaceful. She has 4 blocks to the subway. She pulls her coat tighter and walks. She sees him at the corner of the 2nd block. He is on the ground against the wall of a building, a man who does not belong on the ground, in the way that some people simply do not, something in the line of his jaw and the cost of his coat suggesting a life in which this is not supposed to happen. His hand is pressed to his side. Snow is collecting on his shoulders. He is watching the street with eyes that are open and dark and very, very steady for someone who is bleeding. Every person on that corner makes the same choice. Eyes forward. Steps continuing. The calculation instant and invisible, not my problem, not my night, not my stranger. Liora stops. She doesn't decide to. Her feet simply stop moving, the way they always do when something in her recognizes a need before her mind has caught up. She crosses to him. She kneels in the snow without thinking about her uniform or the cold or the last train she cannot afford to miss. She pulls off her coat and wraps it around his shoulders. She will think nothing of it, walking home. She is wrong to think nothing of it. 1 year passes the way hard years do, not quickly, not slowly, but with a grinding consistency that makes the calendar feel less like a measure of time and more like a record of endurance. Clara's appointment gets moved up, and then moved up again. Julian takes her to dinner twice and cancels once, and she tells herself that's a reasonable average for a man with a busy life. The hotel laundry becomes a second job at a grocery 2 blocks closer to home. Small adjustments. Small losses. The radiator still knocks. By the time New Year's Eve comes around again, Liora has stopped thinking about the man in the snow. This is not entirely true, but it is what she tells herself, which amounts to the same thing in practice. She works the dinner shift. The city celebrates. She walks home. The apartment is lit from inside, she can see it from the street, the warm yellow rectangle of the kitchen window, which is not unusual except that Clara goes to bed at 9:30 now, on doctor's orders, and it is 11:47. Liora takes the stairs a little faster than normal. She opens the door and stops. Her mother is at the kitchen table, hands folded in front of her, with the particular posture of someone who has been told to appear calm and is doing their best. Across from her, in the chair that catches the light from the overhead fixture, sits a man Liora has never seen before. He is looking at the door. He was already looking at the door before she opened it. She notices several things in the space of a single breath. That he is composed in a way that takes up the whole room without moving. That her mother's knuckles are white against the table. That the man's coat, draped over the back of his chair, dark wool, the collar slightly worn on the left side in a way she would recognize anywhere, is her coat. The one she left on a stranger's shoulders in the snow on the coldest night of last year. He stands. Not quickly. The way a man stands when he has decided to, not because the situation requires it. Liora, he says. Just her name. Quietly, and with a certainty that makes it sound like something he has said before, in private, more than once. My name is Sebastian Moretti. He does not offer his hand. He does not smile. He simply tells her, in the same tone one might use to explain a change in weather, completely without apology or decoration, that an arrangement has been made. Between his family and hers. That the details have been discussed with Clara. That as of this moment, Liora is his intended. She opens her mouth. He speaks first. I won't ask you to understand it tonight. Then he buttons his jacket, looks at her mother with something that might, in another light, be respect, and walks past Liora to the door. His shoulder passes close enough that she could reach out and stop him. She does not. She cannot locate the mechanism by which she would do that. The door closes behind him. Her coat stays on the chair. Clara says her name, softly, and Liora holds up one hand, just one, just for a moment, and her mother goes quiet. There are explanations coming. There will be time for the explanations. She sits down at the table in her work uniform and looks at the coat. She is still looking at it when the new year begins. She calls Julian in the morning. She has not slept. She has made coffee and let it go cold twice and sat at the kitchen table while Clara explained, in her careful bright-edged voice, that a man had come to the door 3 days ago with documents and a conversation that Clara had not known how to refuse. She had been alone. He had been very polite. He had not raised his voice once, which Clara seemed to find more unsettling than if he had. Liora listened to all of it without interrupting. Then she went to her room, lay down on top of the covers fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling until the light changed. By morning she has the shape of it, if not the sense. An arrangement. Her name on something she never signed. A man who sat in her kitchen wearing her coat like it was always his. She calls Julian. He picks up on the second ring, which he always does, and the sound of his voice does something to her shoulders that she is not in a position to examine too closely. He is warm immediately, attentive in the specific way he has always been attentive, like she is the only thing currently happening in his world. She tells him everything. The man at the table. The coat. The name. Sebastian Moretti. There is a pause. Brief, almost imperceptible. Then Julian exhales, low and controlled, and says, "Liora. Listen to me. You don't have to worry about this." He comes over within the hour. He is everything the kitchen was not the night before, present, expressive, filling the silence with the right words in the right order. He is angry on her behalf, but cleanly so, without excess. He holds her hands across the table and tells her that men like Sebastian Moretti operate on the assumption that the world will simply accommodate them, and that this is exactly the kind of situation that dissolves the moment someone refuses to play along. He will make calls. He knows people. He will handle it. You don't have to be afraid, he tells her, and he says it so evenly, so completely, that for a moment the whole thing feels smaller than it did at 3 a.m. She wants to believe him. She does believe him, or something close enough to it that the difference is difficult to locate while he is sitting across from her, his thumb tracing slow circles on the back of her hand. It is only later, after he has left, after Clara has gone to rest, after the apartment has gone quiet again, that something surfaces. She turns it over carefully, the way you test ice before trusting your weight to it. When she said the name, Sebastian Moretti, Julian had paused. Just slightly. Just long enough. And then he had said exactly the right thing, in exactly the right tone, without asking a single question. Not who is he, not how did this happen, not what does the arrangement involve. He had moved directly to reassurance, past all the gaps that reassurance should not have been able to reach yet. He knew what she needed to hear. He knew it too quickly. She sits with this for a long time. She does not name it. She is not ready to name it. She looks at the coat still on the chair, because she has not moved it and is not sure why, and she thinks about a man who said her name like a word he had been keeping safe somewhere, and she thinks about a pause that lasted less than 2 seconds. She thinks about it for a very long time. The invitation is not an invitation. It is a black car that appears outside her building on a Thursday evening with a note on the seat that gives an address and a time and nothing else. No explanation. No question mark at the end of anything. Liora wears the best thing she owns, which she understands immediately upon arriving is not going to be enough. Not because it is wrong, exactly, but because the room she is walking into has a different relationship with the word enough than she does. Crystal. Candlelight. The specific hush of a space where everyone present has long since stopped being impressed by spaces like this. She stands at the entrance for 3 seconds longer than she means to, getting her bearings, and then she finds Sebastian across the room and walks toward him because he is the only point of reference she has. He looks at her when she arrives. Not at her dress or the room's reaction to her entrance. At her face, briefly and directly, in a way that gives nothing away and somehow takes nothing either. He says her name in greeting. He does not apologize for the lack of warning. He hands her a glass of water, not champagne, which is either an oversight or the most precise thing anyone has done for her all week, because she has not eaten since noon and champagne would have been a problem. She does not get to decide which it is, because that is when Valentina De Luca appears. She does not walk into conversations. She arrives in them, a shift in the room's gravity that Liora feels before she locates the source. Valentina is stunning in the way that certain things are stunning, the way architecture is stunning, with intention built into every line. Her dress is the color of deep water. Her smile arrives at exactly the right moment. Sebastian. She says his name with the ease of long familiarity, touching his arm briefly, proprietarily, the way you touch something you have always considered yours. Then she turns to Liora, and the smile becomes warmer, which is somehow worse. You must be Liora. I've heard. A pause so small it could be imagined. It's lovely to finally meet you. She is kind for the entire duration of the conversation. This is the thing Liora will think about afterward, that there is not a single moment she could point to and call an attack. Valentina asks questions that are perfectly courteous and somehow make the answers feel inadequate. She references shared history with Sebastian in passing, lightly, the way you mention geography, simply as established fact that requires no defense. She compliments Liora's dress with complete sincerity and the effect is somehow destabilizing, like being handed something fragile you didn't ask to hold. By the time Valentina excuses herself, drifting back into the room like smoke resolving into air, Liora is smiling and has no idea how she got there. She spends the rest of the evening one half step outside herself. She speaks when spoken to. She holds her water glass and watches the room and feels, with a quiet and persistent accuracy, like a word used correctly in the wrong sentence. Present. Grammatically sound. Completely out of place. In the car going home, Sebastian does not speak for several minutes. Then he says, without looking at her, "You held your ground." Liora looks at the city passing in the window. "I didn't realize I was on it," she says. He says nothing after that. But something in the set of his jaw shifts, almost imperceptibly, in the dark. He is remembering. She does not yet know that about him, that he forgets nothing. That the evening is already filed away somewhere behind those unreadable eyes, every detail of it, including the 3 seconds she stood at the entrance getting her bearings, and the exact moment Valentina's smile made her stand slightly straighter, and the fact that she put nothing on her face for the rest of the night and kept it there. He is remembering all of it. She finds out about the hospital bill by accident. She is on hold with the billing department, 11 minutes, the kind of hold music that was selected by someone who has never needed to be on hold, when the representative comes back and tells her the account has been settled. Paid in full, 3 days ago. No name on the transaction. A reference number that leads nowhere useful when she tries to trace it. She sits with the phone in her hand after the call ends and does the arithmetic of it. 3 days ago she did not know the bill was coming. She had not told Julian. She had not told Clara, who would have found a way to blame herself. The only other person who had been in any proximity to the details of her life was a man who had said 11 words to her across a kitchen table and left her coat on a chair. She does not call to thank him. She is not sure what she would say. She files it somewhere internal and keeps moving, because that is what she does. 2 weeks later she is at Sebastian's house for the second time, brought there by the same black car, for a meeting with a family lawyer that takes 40 minutes and leaves her with more questions than she arrived with. Afterward she is left alone in a study while Sebastian takes a call elsewhere in the house. The room is quiet and ordered and smells like wood smoke and old paper. There is a file on the corner of the desk. It is not hidden. It is not exactly displayed. It simply exists at the edge of her sight line with the particular quality of something left rather than placed. Her name is not on it. Julian's is. She reads it standing up, in the way you read something you are not certain you should be reading, quickly, retaining everything. Financial records. Dates. A series of transactions that form a shape she recognizes, the shape of someone positioning themselves carefully around another person's assets over a long period of time. Around her mother's medical expenses. Around Liora herself, mapped and measured like a problem being solved in advance. She closes the file. She puts it back at the same angle she found it. When Sebastian returns, she is standing at the window looking at the street below, and she does not tell him what she read, and he does not ask. She understands, with the instinct she has been honing since childhood, that this was the point. Not to be told. To be given the information at a distance, cleanly, with her own hands. She does not know whether to be grateful or unsettled. She decides, provisionally, on both. The third thing happens on a night in February when the heat in his house has been turned low and she has drifted to the tall window in the front room to watch the snow come down again. She is lost in it, the way snow invites you to be lost, and she does not hear him come in behind her. She only knows he is there when the weight of a coat settles over her shoulders. Not placed. Draped, with a quietness and a care that is over before she can turn around, so that by the time she does he is already moving away, already occupied with something else, as though it did not happen. She stands there in his coat and looks at the snow. She has spent her entire life reading people, in subway cars, across diner counters, in the careful bright-edged voices of people who are frightened and pretending not to be. She is good at it. She is rarely wrong. She turns this man over slowly in her mind, this collection of quiet actions and absent explanations, and finds something she did not expect to find. Consistency. Absolute, unperformed consistency. It unsettles her more than anything else has. Valentina begins with coffee. She calls it a coincidence the first time, running into Liora outside the pharmacy on a Tuesday afternoon, suggesting the cafe across the street with the easy warmth of someone who simply enjoys company. Liora goes, because refusing feels like the wrong kind of statement and she is still working out the grammar of this world she has been placed inside. They sit for 40 minutes. Valentina is charming and asks questions about Clara and laughs at the right moments and says nothing, not one thing, that could be called unkind. It is only walking home that Liora realizes she feels worse than when she sat down. She cannot locate why. This bothers her more than the feeling itself. The second time is at a small dinner, 4 people, the kind of gathering that feels informal but has been arranged with great precision. Valentina sits across from her and at some point, in the middle of a conversation about something else entirely, says, lightly, as though it has just occurred to her, he's never looked at anyone the way he looks at you. A pause. A small, thoughtful smile. I just wonder what he sees. She moves on before Liora can respond. The sentence hangs in the air and Liora leaves it there, outwardly, while something in her quietly picks it up and turns it over for the rest of the evening. What he sees. Not what she is. The distinction is minor and surgical and entirely intentional. The third time Valentina brings a gift for Clara, something small and considered, dropped off at the apartment while Liora is at work, so that it is Clara who receives her and Clara who calls Liora afterwards saying what a lovely woman, so thoughtful, you should be grateful for people like that in your corner. And Liora says yes, of course, and hangs up and stands on a street corner in the February cold understanding that she has just lost a room in her own home. Across the city, in a restaurant that does not have a sign outside, Valentina sits across from Julian Cross. She is not warm with him. She does not perform anything. With Julian she is simply efficient, which is the version of herself she finds most comfortable. She tells him what she has observed. Sebastian's attention. The file left on the desk. The coat at the window. The way he watches the door before Liora walks through it. She lays it out cleanly and Julian listens with his hands around a glass and his face arranged into the expression of a man absorbing information he finds useful. She's still calling him, Julian says. Twice last week. This is almost entirely true. Liora had called Julian twice, once about her mother's prescription, once to cancel the dinner she had agreed to. But Valentina takes this version of events and smooths it slightly in the retelling to Sebastian 2 days later, in passing, almost as an afterthought, the way you mentioned something you assumed was already known. She seems to still rely on Julian quite a bit. A small frown of concern. I only mention it because I'd hate for it to cause you problems. Sebastian says nothing. He is very good at saying nothing. But Valentina has been watching him for years and she knows the difference between his silences. This one has a quality of attention in it, a stillness that is not peace but its careful imitation. She leaves it there. She does not press. She has planted what she came to plant and she understands, with the patience of someone who has always played a long game, that seeds require time. She finishes her coffee and returns to Julian. There is more to arrange. Enzo finds her on a Wednesday. Not through a black car or a formal arrangement, he simply appears at the counter of the grocery where she works the morning shift, buying nothing, leaning against the end of the register with the relaxed confidence of someone who has never once worried about being somewhere he shouldn't be. He is younger than Sebastian, lighter in every sense, the kind of person whose face defaults to amusement rather than assessment. But his eyes, when they settle on her, have the same quality his brother's do. They miss nothing. I'm Enzo, he says, as though this explains the visit entirely. I know who you are, Liora says. He smiles. Good. That saves time. He sets a folded envelope on the counter between them, unhurried, the way you set down something that has been in your pocket long enough that you've stopped thinking of it as significant. Finish your shift. Then read that. In order. He leaves without buying anything. She reads it in the stairwell of her building, sitting on the third floor landing with the envelope open across her knees, because she cannot wait until she gets inside and she does not want Clara to see her face while she reads. Enzo has assembled it with a neatness that feels almost considerate, pages in sequence, dates visible, the financial trail laid out with the clarity of something that has been organized by someone who understood that the person reading it would need to be able to follow it without stopping. Julian Cross has been building toward her for 2 years. Not toward her, exactly, toward the intersection of her and Clara and the medical debt and the small inheritance Clara had been quietly accumulating that Liora did not know existed because Clara had been quietly accumulating it as a surprise, something for Leora's future, something safe. Julian had known about it for 14 months. The dates on the documents make the timeline plain, his first message to Liora, the dinner he suggested, the way he had positioned himself as steady and present and reliable, all of it charted against the financial records like a map with a destination already marked. The connection to Valentina is on the last page. Clean and undeniable. A shared account. 3 transfers. The most recent one dated 6 days ago. Liora reaches the end of the documents and stops. She sits in the stairwell and does not cry. She has the sensation of something very large and very quiet settling into place inside her, not breaking, but rearranging. The shape of the last 2 years shifting into a new configuration that is accurate in a way the previous one was not. Every warm text. Every perfectly calibrated reassurance. Every moment she had taken out and held carefully in the dark because it made her feel less alone. Rehearsed. All of it rehearsed. She sits with this for a long time. The stairwell is cold. Somewhere above her a door opens and closes and she does not move. Then she gathers the pages, folds them back into the envelope, and stands up. She takes out her phone and calls Enzo, because his number is written on the inside of the envelope flap in handwriting that is nothing like his brother's. He answers immediately. She asks only one question. How long has Sebastian known? A beat. Honest and brief. About Julian, 8 months, Enzo says. About Valentina's involvement, 3 weeks. About the account, a pause. He found that before you did. Liora stands very still in the stairwell. 8 months. Sebastian had known for 8 months and had left a file on a desk at an angle that invited her to find it herself. Had paid a hospital bill without announcement. Had put a coat over her shoulders and walked away. Had given her time to arrive at the truth on her own terms. She hangs up and looks at the envelope in her hands and understands, with the particular clarity of someone whose assumptions have just been entirely rearranged, that she has been reading the wrong man as the danger. She has been doing it for a very long time. The gathering is the largest she has attended, a formal dinner at the Moretti estate, 40 people at a table that was built for exactly this kind of occasion, candlelight and crystal and the low particular hum of a room full of people who understand that everything happening here means something beyond itself. Sebastian had told her only that attendance was expected. She had worn the black dress. She had arrived. For the first hour it is simply difficult in the way these evenings are always difficult, the navigation of names and histories she does not share, the awareness of her own outsider status moving through the room with her like a second shadow. She manages it. She has been managing it. Then the envelope appears. A woman she does not recognize slides it across the table during the second course, murmuring something about it having been left for her at the door. Liora opens it with the table watching in the way that tables watch things, peripherally, deniably. Inside is a photograph. Her and Julian, from 2 months ago, a coffee she had agreed to for the sole purpose of ending things clearly and finally. The angle and the framing suggest something entirely different from what it was. Beneath the photograph, a single line. Ask her how many times she's seen him since the arrangement began. The question spreads before she can contain it. She does not know how, a word here, a glance there, the specific efficiency of a room that has been prepared in advance for a particular moment. Within minutes the conversation has shifted, gathered, and turned toward her with the polite and devastating attention of people who have not yet decided what they think but are very interested in the answer. Sebastian, at the head of the table, is watching her. His face is unreadable. This is the thing Valentina has calculated precisely, that his stillness will look, in this moment, like doubt. Liora sets the photograph down. She excuses herself. The powder room is small and very quiet. She runs cold water over her wrists the way her mother taught her when she was young and prone to panic, though she has not panicked in years because she has not had the luxury. She looks at herself in the mirror above the sink. She looks tired. She has looked tired for a long time. But her eyes are clear and her hands have stopped shaking and she knows, with absolute certainty, what the truth is. She also knows that Valentina is counting on her not to say it. That the elegant architecture of the evening depends entirely on Liora doing what people in her position generally do, absorbing the humiliation quietly, deflecting, retreating into the performance of someone who has nothing to hide by acting like someone who does. She dries her hands. She walks back out. The room notices her return the same way it noticed her exit, peripherally, immediately. She does not go back to her seat. She moves to a position where she can be seen clearly and she waits for the conversation to find her, which it does within seconds, because rooms like this always do. Then she speaks. Not loudly. Not with the trembling over-precision of someone trying to control their voice. She simply tells the truth, the coffee, the reason for it, the date, the duration, the fact that she has the messages on her phone if anyone would like to see them. She says it the way she says everything that matters, which is plainly and without theater, in the same voice she uses to tell Clara that the bill is handled and not to worry. The room is very quiet. At the head of the table, Sebastian is still watching her. His expression has not changed. But something behind it has, she can see it from across the room, some slight internal shift, like a door opening inward somewhere that has been closed for a very long time. Valentina, 3 seats to his left, reaches for her wine glass with a perfectly steady hand. It is the first thing she has done all evening that costs her something. The file reaches Sebastian's desk the following morning. It has been assembled carefully, he can see that immediately, the way you recognize craft in something even when the craft has been used against you. Photographs, records, testimony from 2 sources he has used before and trusts. On paper, the case against Liora is coherent. Damaging. The kind of thing that, presented to anyone else in his position, would constitute a conclusion. Valentina has been thorough. He will give her that. He sits at his desk for a long time without opening it past the first page. The house is quiet. Outside, the city is doing what it always does, indifferent, continuous, unbothered by the small precise dramas happening inside its buildings. He can hear Enzo somewhere down the hall, the particular quality of his brother's silence that means he is waiting to see what happens next. Sebastian looks at the file. He thinks about a woman standing at the entrance of a room for 3 seconds longer than she meant to, getting her bearings, and then straightening and walking forward anyway. He thinks about hands folded around a water glass, not champagne, because he had noticed she hadn't eaten and she had not said so and he had said nothing either, just made the choice quietly, the way she made choices. He thinks about a powder room and a photograph and 40 people watching and a voice that did not waver, that offered its truth plainly and without performance, in the same register you use for things that simply are what they are. He thinks about a snowy street. A coat settling over his shoulders. Footsteps retreating before he could ask a name. He closes the file. He picks up his phone. What follows does not look like much from the outside. 3 calls, each brief. A meeting arranged for that evening at a location Julian Cross believes is a business opportunity. He arrives in a good suit and his best smile and finds Enzo waiting instead, which is the last thing he finds surprising for quite some time. The meeting with Valentina is quieter still, conducted in the kind of language that leaves no recordings and requires no raised voices. Sebastian attends this one himself. He sits across from her and says very little. He does not need to say much. Valentina is intelligent enough to understand what his presence means, and intelligent enough to know that the particular stillness he is wearing tonight is not the one that precedes negotiation. The architecture collapses with very little noise. This is the nature of structures built on coordination. Remove one point of contact and the whole thing becomes a history rather than a plan. By 10 o'clock the coordination is gone. By 11 the financial account has been addressed in the way Sebastian addresses things that require discretion. Julian Cross will recalibrate his ambitions elsewhere, in a different city, in a different configuration. Valentina will do the same. Neither of them will find it comfortable. This is intentional. Enzo is in the hallway when Sebastian returns to the estate. He is leaning against the wall with his jacket off and his arms crossed, and he has the expression of a man who has been watching a long game reach its final moves and feels vindicated about his early read of the board. He looks at his brother for a moment. Then he turns and signals to someone in the kitchen. "Better wine," he says, to no one in particular. "We're done with the other stuff." Sebastian says nothing. But something in him, some long-held tension that has been present so consistently he had stopped registering it as tension, releases quietly in the dark hallway of his own house. It is not dramatic. It is simply over. He goes to find his phone. He has a call to make. Clara's surgery is on a Thursday. It takes 4 hours and 11 minutes, though Liora stops tracking time somewhere around the 2nd hour because the numbers stop meaning anything useful and she is better served by the cup of tea she isn't drinking and the window at the end of the corridor that shows a slice of gray February sky going slowly white with cloud. Enzo sits with her for the first hour without being asked, says almost nothing, and leaves when her phone rings with the first update from the surgical team, quietly, without ceremony, in the way she is coming to recognize as the Moretti family's private language for care. The surgery goes well. The surgeon uses the word successful twice and Liora shakes his hand and walks back to the corridor and stands at the window and allows herself, for exactly the length of one long breath, to feel the full weight of everything she has been carrying for 3 years. Then she lets it go. Julian does not call. Valentina does not appear. The world contracts back to its essential shape, Clara recovering in a room with good light, the pharmacy, the morning shifts, the radiator that still knocks but has begun to feel like company rather than complaint. The arrangement, she understands from a brief conversation with the family lawyer, has formally concluded. The paperwork is resolved. There are no remaining obligations on either side. She is, technically, free of all of it. She is not sure what to do with that. She has been moving towards something for so long that the absence of it has a texture she doesn't immediately recognize. It takes her several days to identify it as stillness. Not emptiness. Stillness. The kind that exists after a long noise stops and you stand in the quiet and realize the quiet is not bad, only unfamiliar. She thinks about a file left open at a considered angle. A hospital bill paid without announcement. A coat placed over her shoulders by hands that asked nothing in return. She thinks about a door opening inward in a face that rarely opens at all. He comes on a morning in early March when the snow has finally conceded to something approaching spring, not warm, but softer, the city's edges less absolute than they have been for months. She hears the knock and opens the door, and he is standing in the hallway in a coat that is not hers, holding a coat that is. It has been cleaned and repaired with such care that it looks, for a moment, like something new. But the left collar has the same slit where she has always known, and the third button is still fractionally darker than the others from where she replaced it 2 winters ago, and it is unmistakably, completely hers. You left it on a chair, Sebastian says. You never took it back. I remember, Liora says. He holds it out. She takes it, and for a moment they are both holding it, and neither of them lets go immediately, and the hallway is very quiet. Then he says, simply, without preamble or performance, the arrangement is finished. What happens now is not an obligation. A pause. The particular quality of silence that means he is saying something that costs him. I'm asking if you would like to stay. Liora looks at him. This man of closed files and quiet actions and coats placed over shoulders without being asked. This man who gave her the truth at a distance and the time to arrive at it on her own. She has spent her whole life giving. Coats, warmth, time, the benefit of every doubt. She has rarely, if ever, chosen something purely because she wanted it. She steps back from the door. She leaves it open behind her. Come in, she says. I'll make coffee. He follows her inside. The door closes quietly. In the kitchen, Clara's radio is playing something low and unhurried, and the light through the window is the pale clean light of a morning that has decided, finally, to begin.